Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a teacher, tarot oracle card reader, and I'm also a singer and guitarist in the rock band Red Treasure, and I am located in very hot but very beautiful North Hollywood, California.
Hi, Collin. My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach, and I help people shift away from negative thinking. And I'm in San Diego, California.
And even though we're a 2 to 5 hour drive, depending on traffic, away from each other, Southern California is going through some very weird weather right now, even for us. Hurricanes.
Yeah, we got some great
110-degree heat.
great rain on Saturday.
Yeah, I saw a picture or video of San Diego, downtown San Diego last night, and I was like, I've never seen that much rain anywhere in Southern California that I can remember. But
It was awesome.
we want to thank you so much for listening and watching to the podcast here. At this time, we're posting a brand new episode for you every Monday morning, which is amazing considering how my ADHD has been absolutely raging lately. We appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support the podcast, liking us, following us, subscribing to us, leaving us a comment, writing us a review. We always love to hear from you, and all of that helps other people find us. Each week we start our discussion from a different jumping off point, and I'm just getting better and better at it because no matter how long we do this, it always seems to go the same way now, where we have what we call friend time for approximately 30 minutes before we start recording the podcast, where we come on Zoom and we catch up as friends. And then inevitably, without trying, one of us, usually Stephanie, you, just starts talking about law of attraction and something that,
Well, I'm just
popped out
sharing,
you.
I was really just sharing about my life and what happened
Yes.
this week, and you're like,
I'm getting back, because a lot of times I go crazy because, like, I'll let you go for like 30 to 60 seconds, and I'm like, you just said that the perfect way, but stop. We're going to start the podcast. You're going to say it over when I get through my little intro here. This week, you were like, so I listened to an Abraham thing this morning. It was so great, and I was like, I was like, stop talking. Don't waste any of the brilliance. We're hitting record. We're starting the show.
That sound was great. And that's why I'm usually laughing. I have a case of the giggles when we were, doing the intro, because that happened like
it's always like
2 minutes earlier, and I'm still like recovering from that. But anyways, okay, so so yesterday I had this really contrasting day. I had this train of thinking that was really had me out of the vortex. Like, I had this expectation that something may possibly happen, and I was going through my day and it wasn't. And honestly, everything that I thought on Friday that I would do on Saturday, none of it occurred. And I was like, okay. But I was in a kind of grouchy, thinking a lot of negative thoughts, and I was just like, whatever. But it was really nice because in the evening I started watching a movie, and then I was on my bed watching TV, and I was looking to my right, and there's all this space on my bed, and I'm like, I could like draw while I'm watching a movie. And so I go to the office and I grab my art stuff and I start using chalk and colored chalk, and it was like 15 minutes of bliss. But anyway, so I wake up this morning, I'm feeling better. That often happens. I get a good night's sleep. It really wasn't even a great night's sleep, but I go to sleep and I wake up in a much better vibration, much better mood. And I'm making breakfast and I'm listening to Abraham on YouTube, and this one was so good for me. Like, sometimes I want to share them with you, and I'm like, if you're not in a similar vibration or in a, it's not going to talk to you the way it does to me, so I just don't send them. But I'm like, oh, this was so good. And the guy he was really good about practicing the art of allowing. He was just trying to like soften some things.
Just really quick, if this is your first time ever hearing about Abraham Hicks, she channels a group of intelligences from the other side who call themselves Abraham. It's basically just wisdom about how the universe works energy-wise, law of attraction, art of allowing. And she holds these workshops, which is what you listen to an excerpt from one of them, where she has people come up out of the audience and sit in what's called the hot seat, which is just somewhere where you get to ask Abraham a question. And so Abraham says, "What's your question?" And they ask the question, and sometimes it's a long dialogue, like the person gets follow-up questions and things like that. But so when you're talking about the person, you're talking about the person who was at the workshop you listened to,
Right.
was in the hot seat.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Collin, for that explanation for those who just came on and maybe you've been listening for a while and you still don't get it. Lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. I knew I was going to do that.
That's okay. That's okay.
You said that the guy was in alignment or something, but
yeah, he was really great. He was just kind of fine tuning, as Abraham would say, and he was, he was talking about like his relationship. He's like, I'm in this relationship that I've always wanted, and he goes, but I still want more. And he goes, not that she's not great, she's great, but I still want more for our relationship or whatever. And so they go on and on talking, and it was so good because it all boiled down to there's only really two relationships that there's only two relationships that I should be really concerned with. And that's the relationship with myself, and that's me as a human being, and then me, Abraham calls it the inner being. I used to call it higher self, that energy of me that it knows everything and is all and is always looking out for my highest good. And I was like, oh, I was so far away from that yesterday. That's why I felt so bad. But in practicing the art of allowing for so long, I was effing clueless because I was in my little story of like, I wanted this expectation and it wasn't happening. And I'm telling myself this story of why I think it wasn't. I don't know if it was true or not, but it just kept making me feel bad. And so I'm really fortunate that I've been practicing this for so long that I can literally the next morning wake up in such a better mood. Like it's like it just washes all away. Like I know that about myself now. But hearing that, it's a 15-minute excerpt from that workshop, and hearing the conversation that he had with Abraham was just like, oh, it's almost like get in and near the vortex as much as possible, and everything else kind of works out. Like they were talking about how, maybe we have like a funky relationship with someone in our lives, like a family member or what have you. But if instead of trying to make them do what we want or make them be how we want them to be, if all I do is, and not all, because this is really what it is, if I can help myself feel better, if I think about something that feels better or just kind of soothe myself, if I'm in and near the vortex, that person is going to bring their best to me. Like I'm going to draw from them the best of them. And I just thought, oh man, it's that easy. Like all I have to do is help myself feel better, and my relationships will be better, my life will be better. And I'm just, even though I've heard that 100 times, it was like, especially after yesterday.
You've heard it more than 100, just FYI.
I would say, yeah, I know. Here, you hold up the other O. And I was just like, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff in what you mentioned that popped out at me. One thing, we're talking about Abraham, but we talk about the film The Secret a lot here as well. And there's like every sequence of The Secret, has its own kind of importance for me. There's one on relationships where there's a few different sort of vignettes or stories about relationships and how law of attraction, art of allowing works with that. But there's one where a woman is having a really difficult time in her marriage to her husband. Her husband is, working late, stressed out, angry a lot. They're getting into fights a lot. And the advice that she gets from someone who knows about the law of attraction is just like, take care of you. Like, you go be happy. Find things to do for you to be happy. And then what will happen is, if he's in a bad mood, you won't be there at that point. Like because the person in the really negative vibration can't really coexist with the person in the positive. If you're in a really positive place, like the universe is like, again, I talk about the universe like a person, but it's, you can look at it as like magnets or something. Like the hugely positive magnet is not going to attract the hugely negative magnet. You know, actually, I think that's how magnets work, but that's a bad metaphor.
Yeah, but it is. But using your attraction power is what you're
Yes,
speaking of.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And they illustrate it really well, where the husband comes home late from work and he's all upset and he's ready to like have a fight and be angry and everything, and instead there's a note on the kitchen table saying, "Oh, dinner's in the oven for you. I went out with my girlfriends," and they sort of cut to her. You see her out with her girlfriend, and she didn't know that he was going to come home that night, particularly at that time. Upset, waiting to have a fight or whatever. But it's just the fact that she took care of herself and was out having a good time, and like they just wouldn't sync up. And then later on, there's a time where she's feeling really good and he's feeling really good, and they end up being at home together at the same time and having a good dynamic. So I think that's it's deceptive, because I think our culture so focuses on problems being outside ourselves, like
That we don't create them, right?
Yeah, like if I'm having a problem with my neighbor or with my spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, it's that gosh darn neighbor, that gosh darn partner of mine, whatever. It's them, and it's like, yeah, except. And there's some accuracy to that. I mean, there's other people are in charge of their own actions.
Yeah, but it takes two.
That's the thing, like, and I mean, I think I've told this story on the podcast at least once and probably multiple times. I had a corporate job at one point years ago where I was really challenged with my supervisor. Like every time, like almost every day, we would clash swords, metaphorically over something, and then I just realized, like, I could feel like, oh, I'm creating this. Like, originally my brain is like, oh, it's her fault, she's a bad boss or whatever. But then I'm like, oh, but I was looking at our interactions, and it's like, oh, she might be starting these things, but it's like I add fuel to the fire, she adds fuel to the fire, and then we've got this massive bonfire going, and we both built it. Like, we 100%. Half the gasoline in that fire is my gasoline.
Yeah. And we don't think that, right?
Right.
I'm so focused on the other person that I forget about, oh, I'm playing a part in this by interacting in it.
And if both people are doing that, it just becomes this cycle, because if the other person is over-focused on your behavior, then you're both just going to be like, oh,
and we're just always wanting to
him. Yeah.
And we're always trying to one up each other, like, oh, well, and it's like, oh, how the tug of war. It's like, drop the rope and it's over.
Yeah. And honestly, like, but the challenge in that situation was she was my supervisor, my boss. I couldn't like not see her, not talk to her. But then I was like, well, what can I do? To not engage in this pattern with her. And I was just like, and I don't know, it just came to me out of knowing what we talk about all the time, which is be polite, be respectful, don't be a jerk and like ignore her or not talk to her or not respond to her, because that's insubordination. That's not okay either. But like, just talk to her as much as you need to, and then go do your work. Yeah. And just and focus on you, and focus on your work, focus on your job. Don't focus on her and the dynamic with her. And I remember having a feeling before I changed my behavior of just like waking up in the morning, and I would be filled with dread. And I feel like so many people in America go through this, or might be going through it right now. Like dreading going to work because of our dynamic, really. Yeah. At the time, I would have said my boss that I don't like, but it really was like just that day, what I knew would happen, which is we would clash, we would get upset, And I mean, it was like 2 or 3 days after I just did this disengagement thing, where like I didn't feel that way when I woke up in the morning.
Oh my God, that's great.
And like,
that's fast. 3
or 4 months later, she transferred to another city far, far away with me, and I had nothing to do with that. Like, it just She just
Well, you
announced it one day.
did. You really did.
Well, energetically.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's not like I,
But that's just
had any
it.
authority to get her transferred or anything. Like
But
she
that's
wanted to.
just
Yeah.
it. We don't have to do that.
That's the thing
That's
too.
where the power that we have, and that's where I
Yeah.
love sharing with clients is like, you engaged in your real power.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't know that
Yeah.
that's where our real power is our focus. You took your focus and attention away from it, and that's what gives something power.
Yeah.
Is our focus and attention. And it's like, you know, anyways, I don't want to go to where I was going to say, but so I want to go back to what Abraham was talking about is the most important relationship is the one that I have with myself and my inner being.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where our emotions come forth. So if I would have been in a little bit higher vibration, I would have been able to say, oh yeah, I know why I feel so bad, because my inner being's not focused on this. That's whenever I'm feeling any type of negative emotion, it's because I've detoured from my inner being's focus, because my inner being's only focused on what I want and all that I have in my vortex, and that's what my emotions are about. It's not about what he said or she said or anything I've done. It's about my thoughts, and the alignment or out of alignment with, this awesome vortex in my inner being's focus. And it was like, so I was thinking as you were talking, I'm like, oh my God, so what did I do last night before I went to bed? I was coloring. And I remember thinking, because I was so happy after I was not coloring, I was drawing with chalk while I was, because I have to go into the bathroom and like kind of blow off the little bit of dust that was from some of the chalks.
Thank you for demonstrating. For those of you listening to the audio version, Stephanie just gave a fantastic demonstration of how someone would blow dust off of a surface. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And so I think if I was a stand-up comedian, I would be one of those ones that was very, comical within my physical being.
A lot of slapstick.
But I remember as I was walking back into the office, I was like, oh my God, I just took care of my little girl. She's like so happy right now. And I was like, oh, that's super important. It's like that was part of why I was feeling so bad, was because I wasn't taking care of her yesterday. I was focused on something and someone else and not on me. And I think partly now that I think about it is that was part of the reason why I woke up this morning in a better feeling mood. Also, Tiger woke me up. He was sitting outside the French doors. And
Tiger is a cat that is not your cat, but lives nearby and visits you often.
Well, he's my next door neighbor's cat, and I've known him since 2012. So I've known him for 10 years, and he's like my cat. We have the best of both worlds, and he's meowing, and I'm like, oh, and I haven't seen him in days, so it made my inner child happy. And so I had taken care of my little girl, my inner child, last night before I went to bed, and then I wake up to this sweet little cat that I adore. So it's really about that. So what does it look like to take care of ourselves?
And also, sorry, one final clarification. When you say your little girl, you're talking about the little girl that lives inside you.
Right.
Not an actual.
Yeah, my little girl is my daughter is an adult now. So when I say little girl, I'm not referring to her, because she's not a little girl, but my inner child. When I say my little girl, I'm speaking of my inner child, which we all have. Collin has a little boy within him. If you're a female listening to us, you have a inner child is a little girl in you, and if you're a man, you have an inner child is your little boy. And that's really, I remember learning this work years ago, and it's super important to take care of that aspect of ourselves. And that's the one who likes to play and have fun. That's where our joy comes from. And doing those things that feel good, which, I love being creative and just kind of letting her like color and do whatever, draw, play instruments. I was playing the harmonica as well. And
yeah, I want to call you out, but I'll call myself out also. and also, well, I mean, one thing that's really, one thing that I guess surprised me when I first heard it is that a lot of times, so if you've never been to Abraham Hicks workshop, or never seen her / them. This woman, Esther Hicks, comes out, and she addresses everybody and says, "Hi, I'm Esther, and I'm the person that channels Abraham." And then she takes a moment. She lets everybody know that she's going to start channeling Abraham. And then she takes a moment, and you see this kind of, physical change in body language and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Abraham takes over and talks. But the thing that surprised me was the first time I heard Abraham talk about how Esther had struggled that week with an art of allowing thing. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me that the lady who channels this entity from the other side that knows the law of attraction backwards and forwards, understands the art of allowing 100%, and talks to Esther all day, every day, pretty much. Like, Esther didn't do the art of allowing last week. Like, how did and then I started hearing it more often, of like, they would mention, like, oh, let's tell you this funny story about, this week Esther had a time where she wasn't practicing the art of allowing very well. And what I started to realize, like, oh, Esther's kind of just like the rest of us. Like, this is about practicing and just getting better. Because actually, you're telling your story, and the beginning, I believe, chronologically, the beginning of the story was actually the day before, when you stubbed your toe at the beach.
Yes, right.
And in the film The Secret, and not only is this in The Secret, that a woman stubs her toe getting out of bed in the morning, and
I
then
didn't stub it, dude. I was running and on the beach
I
in
understand.
the sand, and it literally, my big toe went under my foot.
I understand.
Nailed it big
But it's the exact same thing that the lady in The Secret does. And you and I both watched The Secret multiple times. So your brain knows what to do if you hurt your toe, which is to not stay in a negative vibration for very long, and
Oh,
but
I wasn't. We were walking on the beach, so
Yeah.
I was just in pain.
yeah. But then you said that led to Saturday morning.
Oh, because I was in
Good.
pain.
Yeah. So
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Yes,
Yeah.
it just
But I had that-
built momentum. Yeah.
yeah. But you and I have seen that sequence in The Secret like a bunch of times, and you still were like, and I mean, I've had that. I've had multiple times where I do the exact thing in the film The Secret that the person does to attract negative stuff.
Right.
And even though I've watched the film, and even though we do this podcast every week, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what that dude does in the film.
And that's why Abraham loved to point out when Jerry and Esther were out of the vortex and not in alignment, because they really wanted everyone, all of us who listen and watch, to see, like, even with all of their knowledge and information and practice, they still do. And that was something that Abraham said in this video this morning, was that we're going to come out of the vortex sometimes. We're going to have contrast. We're going to be in those lower vibrations, in those negative thoughts. Yeah. We just don't want to stay there.
Yeah.
We don't want to make a career out of it. We don't want to live there for the rest of our lives.
And it's just about practicing.
And some people do. And that's sad. I think that's where a lot of disease comes from, and physical pains in our bodies and stuff, is because that's all the resistance built up, and so it's going to create dis-ease.
Yeah, and for me, it's a lifelong project of just practicing it over and over and over again. And honestly, this podcast, I'm grateful that you do it with me. I'm grateful that we have this platform. I'm grateful that people listen and watch, because doing this podcast helps me learn it better, get it more deeply ingrained in my brain.
Well, and talk about it, right?
Yeah, not that so that I will have a week where I have no negative thoughts, no negative vibrations, but just that I will have fewer. And like you're saying, that I will catch the episodes that happen and whatever, take a nap, or put on my favorite song, or all the different things we've talked about that can help just raise your vibration, start getting your vibration going in the right direction.
Sometimes I'll even call someone and just be like, tell me something good, or just talk to me. I'm not going to say anything. I just and of course it's someone who I know that's most likely in a better mood than me. I'm not going to call someone who's I think is going to be negative in my way or in a worse mood than me. I'm not going to do that, because I don't want to perpetuate. but I'm just like, I know enough to like call someone and then shut my mouth and just be like, tell me something good or what's going on with you or something. And I almost always, maybe I'll interject. They'll be like, how are you? And I'll say something for like 5 minutes and then like shut my mouth and I always get off the phone and feel so much better.
Because I watched just a little bit of the beginning of an Abraham workshop this morning on YouTube, and she started off saying something really profound to me, which is, I mean, it's one of these things that's brutally obvious, but earth-shattering also at the same time, which is you can only be in alignment and attracting what you really want, or in resistance, attracting what you don't want. You can't be doing both at the same time. Your vibration is always one channel or the other.
Or the other, yeah.
And for me, that's super helpful because it's like, oh, well, if I catch myself, if I'm able to catch myself in resistance, you know, attracting things I don't want, I have my clock going. You're confusing the audio listeners again. Now they don't know. I know. Like, you gotta watch the visuals. We do both mediums here. I'm in wrap-up mode.
Okay, just make it.
We're trying to stick to a 30-minute as close as we can. Yeah, now I've lost my thing.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I've completely lost it. The last thing I wanted to say is that I think our society, to go back to the original thing that you were talking about, our society and our culture emphasizes the importance of our own efforts so much. I prefer to use the word effort when I talk about stuff like that because action can either be with the universe,
Alignment,
with our higher self, or it can be from resistance.
Yeah,
So action is confusing.
Inspired inspiration.
Yeah, inspired action.
Yeah,
but honestly, if I hear the word action, like I think my brain kind of thinks effort most of the time. And a lot of times, like, the thing to do is to not do anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's to let go of the whole shebang and just go, you know what, I'm just going to go feel good.
That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's why holidays are usually so great, is because we're just like, what's the next good thing that I can do?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird, but, like, going to the beach and just feeling good is better than like trying to be in resistance and then go try to do 17 actions to make something happen. Like, it's just, the vibration is that the other thing that I try to remember as much as possible. Maybe she always talks about being emotion based and vibration based instead of effort based and results based.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that next time.
All right. Fair enough. That is a good ending point to the discussion there. We're so happy you joined us today. We hope you got something out of it. At least now, if you're watching the YouTube version, you know how to blow dust off a flat surface. Thank you, Stephanie. Remember, at this time, we are posting a brand new episode for you every single Monday morning. So if you subscribe either on YouTube or podcast platform, you'll get that popping up for you first thing on Monday morning. We truly appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support us, liking us, following us, subscribing to us, leaving us a comment, and writing us a review. All of that helps other people find the show. Thank you so much for doing it. All of our social media links and our email address are in the description on the YouTube version of this episode down below. We'd love to hear from you, and we wish you a happy and abundant week, and we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.